So is our government using some kind of weapon system on us? There's a new report that shows that the Biden administration had to tell the Trump administration transition team that they were having some health incidents based on one kind of thing they were using. We're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to discuss TPS, the Temporary Protective Service, that allows all these people to come here illegally. Biden just extended it. And you won't believe by how many people he's allowing to stay here, and he gave them protective service all the way throughout the main part of next year. Through Trump's administration, I wonder why he did that, especially when he's going out of power. Also, some new details on California, how there was never any water in the reservoirs. It was dumped weeks before, just like the insurance. And then also there's a report that Gavin is saying it's not true, But there's a report that he was rezoning a lot of these areas. Now, if they're rezoning now, they don't have to worry about disputes because there's no houses. Now, he's declining and denying, but isn't it weird how all of a sudden these stories start coming out? Then we're going to talk about a new story where NATO is moving several amounts of weaponry and vehicles to Poland. Remember me telling you about Romania yesterday? There was a report that said Romania didn't have an election based on the EU's recommendation. The same situation that kind of happened with Ukraine. We involve ourselves in situations that are close to Russia, and now we're putting weaponry in Poland. Do we not think this is going to be all-out war? Also, there is movement with China. There's a new report from Eric Prince. He came out and said this is something to pay attention to because this shows that Taiwan is in dire straits. Let's dive into these stories. A lot to cover today. We're going to jump into them, hit on them, and let you know what's going on so that way you can better prepare your family. We're also going to talk about the fact that in North Carolina they're looking for propane and no one's got it. They're trying to help their neighbors and people are going cold. So it's always good to prepare. Isn't it funny how Biden said that he's got 100% coverage on California, but we have yet to take care of the people in North Carolina? Do we honestly believe that he's going to take care of the people in California because he didn't in Hawaii and North Carolina? A lot to talk about today. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new to our channel, please go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell. Give us a thumbs up. That sure helps us spread our message across this platform. And we humbly ask that you do that if you enjoy. Remember, we do a giveaway each and every month for all 3 channels. And all it takes is you commenting, you being subscribed, and give us a thumbs up. Our analytics shows it. We put you in a drawing, and we want to give you some things. For January, we're going to be giving away seed vaults, big seed vaults from Survival Garden Seeds. And we can't wait to give that to you because we want you to be more independent, more sustainable, and more prepared. Now let's dive into these stories for the day. First, let's talk about some movement of troops. Now, we have 2 reports that are pretty alarming. The first one, let's talk about Poland. There's underground reports that massive movement of NATO equipment has been done and put into Poland. This is from another eyewitness. This is eyewitness reports extensive movement of NATO equipment into Poland, describing it to be so large scale and impossible to overlook. This is not just a few carriers. He said this is alarming amount of transportation and missilery going into Poland. They also said that 2 American ships carrying weapons reportedly arrived in this region, transporting tons of things on Polish roads. So what are we actually seeing with the uptick of this war? Again, we have 10 days before another president, and we see uptick by NATO. Now, this goes along with the report I told you yesterday. You need to be paying attention to Romania. Well, there was a new report that came out just after we did that video yesterday about how the EU has been playing inside the elections. And they said if we did play in this side of elections, and we would do the same thing in Germany. What you're seeing is a movement to stop this populist, this American first kind of policy to where all these other regions like Brazil, like Argentina's done, like El Salvador's done, like all these countries that are wanting something different. Well, the EU and the bigger managerial state of America is not wanting that. So they're playing in other people's elections to try to impact and influence. Keys, look at 2014 with Ukraine. What do we have now? We have a battle going on with Russia because of our influence in Ukraine. And they're trying to do the same thing in Romania. Keep your eyes on that. And then again, look at Poland. Poland has been doing better. But the more that they're wanting NATO things placed there. They're wanting for their safety, security, maybe for their people. But what they're actually doing is they're actually lighting a fuse for another conflict sitting right there on their border with Russia. Now let's bring it back home. I want to give you another report that should blow your mind. The White House has briefed the incoming Trump administration on some health incidents that has occurred based on the result of pulse electromagnetic or acoustic energy. What that means is self-directed lasers or EMP style devices. Something that everybody's been talking about, but nobody wants to admit that this is capabilities of a lot of militaries. You know, you talk about the mysterious fog, you talk about these crazy drones, you talk about all this. These are all capabilities to become more weaponry against people, against countries, against naysayers. And so they're saying, look, we want you to be aware of health incidences that has taken place because we've used these kind of weapons, just so you're aware of it. Now remember, they didn't say they used it against people that were not American. They were saying there's some health incidences, and they're trying to make sure that they're aware in the Trump administration of maybe some here in America. So all this stuff, all these things happening, the drones, the fog, do you think that could be a bigger player in the situation of learning how technology works, learning how to manipulate, learning how to use psyops better, learning how to use it in war? Is that something that we have thought about? I mean, it's amazing how we have the administration. Again, if you look at some of the information, a lot of times there's so much stuff coming at you that you can't dissect it all at one time. This is a public report. It shows that there's some health incidences based on some EMP uses. This is not some hidden agenda. This is exactly what they're telling the Trump administration. It's just because they do so much policy dumps, so much information dumps, so much news dumps that you miss out on things that are important. Why are they using these laser style approaches, this EMP style approaches? There was a guy the other day that said, dealing with these drones, and I'm going to tell you what Trump said about the drones, but there was a guy the other day that said, look, I have the capability. I own the company that can literally pulse a drone out of the sky. He said, the defense contractors buys it from me. We can literally take any object in the sky and down it just like that. Because he said, I can send an electronic pulse system there, like an EMP blast. So if you have someone saying that can happen, now you're seeing that there's health incidences based on the government using this. And then on top of that, we see that we're not doing anything about the ones that are flying in the air. It makes you wonder, what are they trying to prove with what they're doing? And is it actually harming Americans? The mysterious fog that's making everybody sick, that's got all the stuff in the air. The fact that now we have health incidences because of EMP usages against its own people. This should be criminal. It should be criminal. I want to mention one thing about what Trump said about the drones, kind of goes along with this story. He was sitting with Governor Youngkin the other day, and someone asked him about the drones. Why did all of a sudden, we talked about it, and all of a sudden it's gone. Nobody talks about it anymore. That's the sad thing about our news. We never get answers. We just go along to the next problem. So our focus has been on fire and storms, and absolutely not on the things that the government is trying to hide from us. Listen to this. It says, I'm going to give you a report on these drones in about a day. He's talking about in his administration. He says it's ridiculous that they're not letting the American people know and tell you about the drones. Now, two things. First and foremost, that means he has information, and again, because he's not president, he does not have the authority to say it yet. Secondly, kind of like the JFK files, the Epstein book, now it comes down to Trump. Since he's saying that he's going to release it and tell you what it is, it doesn't matter if it causes mass hysteria. You need to release what you just said. So he's saying, look, I know what's going on. It is fearful, and it should be something that we should know, and they're hiding it from the American people. Now, they're hiding it for two reasons. One, they're using it to learn capabilities, intelligence. Two, they're hiding it because it could be something that it would cause mass panic in America. For instance, there's a picture in North Carolina where all these people, miles of vehicles, trying to get propane in certain communities because it's cold and winter storm's coming their way. The same one that's here is going there. And it's going to be even colder there because they're more north. That shows people were not even prepared, and they've been living in bad situations for months because of the hurricane. But still, people are unprepared to go through that. So you take something that's massive, some massive event or something massive that could potentially happen because of NATO, because of the Taiwan situation that we're just talking about, or because of the EMP, or because of the fact of what the drones really are. That terrifying panic would cause for mass hysteria. Look at California. There's a story. I want to read something that Jack Hibbs shared. He said there was a report that came on our radio that showed that over 50% of the fires now that are coming up have been started by arsonists because they're wanting to loot, steal, and take. He said now the police are trying to do all they can just to stop people from lighting new fires. Is that not mind-blowing? That's mind-blowing. And what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to add to the panic so then they can use the panic to take advantage of people. Doesn't that sound like our government? Isn't that funny? And that leads me to another story dealing with California and also with some of the problems with this administration. California, there was a report that Nick Sorter just shared that said that literally, there has been no water in the reservoirs. It was dumped way before this happened. So just in the Pacific Palisades Reservoir was empty and offline when the firestorm exploded. And that was from LA Times. This is criminal. This reservoir holds 117 million gallons of water and would have given firefighters ample pressure and water on the early stages of the blazes. You know what that guy that does the water and power, or that official that does the water and power, what he makes? It's like $600,000 or $700,000. We're not even paying our president that. You know, Karen Bass comes back from a trip from Africa and she fires the fire chief. The fire chief was making over $450,000. And this is why government fails you, because you're paying people big money to not have water and to not actually do their job of firefighting. It says that firefighters could not even fight the blaze because they were empty. The ducts were empty way before this happened. Now tell me why they would have dumped that or took that offline during the time when they know California has problems with wildfires. This goes to another story that Gavin has completely said this. You know, when a politician says unequivocally denounce it or unequivocally say this is false, listen to that. You could tell a lawyer's been all over it because politicians love that word. They want to make you believe that, oh my gosh, that's preposterous. There's a new report that came out and it was shared by several people, again, alleged, but it says breaking. Gavin Newsom was working with developers to change the zoning for several areas that have been affected now in Los Angeles to building mass apartments. Well, now they have this roll in. What's actually going to happen to it? It says Newsom is allegedly working with developers to convert zoning in the Pacific Palisades from R1 single family to R3 apartments. Now, Gavin Newsom came out and said, no, this is completely false. If it's so false, why are so many people picking it up? And why all of a sudden are these fires starting out and they're not stopping? They busted a guy with a flamethrower yesterday. And it was actually, wasn't police that stopped him, if I'm not mistaken. It was citizens saying, look, you can't do this. Starting another fire. Very, very dangerous things. And again, now it's upwards of $150 to $200 billion worth of damage. Now, who's going to pay for that? Biden came out and said that we're going to pay for it. 100%, we're going to cover it. Now, this is the same Biden administration that did not cover Hawaii, that did not cover North Carolina, and now all of a sudden they're going to magically cover California? Now, do I believe that California will be taken care of? Yes, but what about Hawaii and what about North Carolina? Remember, they're getting denied claims the same way from their insurance companies. So we need to pay attention to this. What is actually happening right there? Some big stories coming out of California that could be dangerous. Now, let's jump into what Eric Prince said about the Chinese military. It says, breaking, Chinese Communist Party further preparing for forcibly seizing Taiwan. The Mulberry-style harbor used in Normandy invasion now being replicated with long causeways whose sole purpose into the region use this flat, unguarded beaches in Taiwan. Prepare for a home guard now. Deterrence matters and real leadership solely needed. January 20th cannot come soon enough. Now that's from Eric Prince. I love Eric Prince. I think that Eric Prince has a lot of knowledge when it comes to defending and also military, because this is what he did for a living. And when he says, they're building all this infrastructure, they're not building this infrastructure just to build it. They're doing it for a reason, and it's to take over Taiwan. Now, the question is, they have within 10 days, or Trump will hopefully negotiate peace there. But that kind of reminds me back to the NATO thing in Poland. We don't just spend billions of dollars with our carriers to go over to Poland, just to sit troops there just for the heck of it. No, there's a purpose. Pay attention to what's going on. What we're setting up for is a catastrophic event in some region, and we're going to blame one party or the other, and it's going to cause all that war. You see where Ukraine captured a North Korean. They said, well, he's wounded, but he's okay. You watch if they don't use that to manipulate and use that as propaganda. And you think that North Korea is just going to sit on that? You think that Ukraine is not going to use that for their advantage? War is sad. And why in the world we're not wanting peace blows my mind. And when politicians are saying we need to give more money to Ukraine, what you're doing is actually saying we want more money for war, less for peace. Again, all the while there's problems here at home when North Carolina people can't even get propane. We're worried about what Ukraine's pension is going to be. It's unbelievable. Last few things I want to cover. There's a report that released that Biden extends TPS for millions amidst the policy shift. Listen to this. It says the Biden administration has extended temporary protective service, meaning ways that these illegals are coming in. It's granting them coverage from getting deported, but also giving them money. Listen to this. It says nearly 1 million immigrants from Venezuela, El Salvador, Ukraine, and Sudan are allowed to stay here legally in the United States. 18 months. He just granted that 18 months. Now he's got 10 days left in office. That's called sabotage. That's called trying to beat the next guy coming in and trying to ruin him. It says the decision announced from the Department of Homeland Security admits to protect these individuals from unsafe conditions in their home countries. Unsafe conditions in their home countries. El Salvador doesn't even have crime anymore. Venezuela, we shouldn't even be dealing with their stuff, and we are. We're trying to play politics there. And then Ukraine has had a problem. Are we going to bring everybody from Ukraine here? No. But we just granted 1 million people coverage here. That means we're going to take care of them, we're going to pay for them, we're going to do all we can to make sure they're safe. Again, while people in North Carolina are trying to get propane, while people in California have no home to go back to and insurance is not covering. It's amazing how much this administration hates you and how much they want to sabotage Trump. The last story, then we'll wrap up. There was a report that millions of people were flooding the streets of Philippines. And it's not as in riots, like you would think that, all these people just crowding the streets. And you're like, oh my gosh, something's happening. It's not a protest. It's not anything dangerous. It was them declaring that Jesus Christ is Lord. Mark Zuckerberg going on Joe Rogan yesterday, stating that he's changing policies. Now, was he in the wrong? Probably. But he's saying now we're looking forward to different things, swinging the pendulum back. That's positive. You saw Wes Huff on the podcast. You also saw Mel Gibson on the podcast with Joe Rogan. Things are changing, and you're seeing a future actually look bright by people, by the local people, by the people of America, people in the world. The situation is, though, are they strong enough to stand against some of these governments that are still trying to hold them down? That's what's encouraging, is you see people rising up and having principles and morals again. You're seeing people being encouraged to change their way from what we've seen in the last few weeks and months. Now, my challenge for you is to prepare. Make sure you're ready. Make sure you're understanding what's going on, so that way you can better prepare for what's coming. Because it seems like even though we're trying to do better, our governments are not in the world. So yes, see encouraging things like that. That's not riots, it's not protest. It's people trying to serve Christ. That's encouraging. And then again, to hear these podcasts coming out and people proclaiming God, proclaiming Christ, and wanting something different. Have you seen that? Like all these college athletes are coming out proclaiming God. All these NFL coaches are seeing Bible studies happen. That's encouraging. That is people wanting the change. Can a mass revival take place? I hope. You know who's standing in the way? Most of our governments. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I pray that you'll have a wonderful day. Pay attention to these stories because there's some shady stuff going on. Sadly, the shady stuff is not coming from people like us, our neighbors. It's coming from our leaders, and that's where we need to hold them accountable. The more knowledge we have, the more wisdom we gain, the more common sense approach that we have to doing better for ourselves. Guys, thank you so much for watching. God bless.